I've got a few chisels in my shop that are definitely getting dull. I'm going to use the Tormek T-8 and show you how to sharpen them. The Tormek T-8 is an awesome sharpening station that can handle just sharpening everything around your shop and your house. If you want to know more about the features and functionality of this product, check out some of our other videos. Today, I'm just going to go over in detail how to sharpen a straight chisel using this tool. So let's go ahead and get started. I've got a few different chisels that are getting dull in my shop, so I'm going to go ahead and sharpen all of these using the Tormek today. The first thing I want to do is flatten the backs of these chisels. Now you only have to do this process once, but I'm going to show you how it can be done on the Tormek T8 using the outside of the stone here. The outside of the grindstone is a flat reference surface, so you can use it to flatten the backs of your tools. I use pressure across the whole tool and monitor progress as I go. I want to get a nice, consistent scratch pattern on the back of the tool. If I don't get all the way to the very tip, I can always grind away the bevel side that little bit more to get to the flat back portion. The premium Lie-Nielsen chisel I'm using comes very flat from the factory. It only takes about 20 seconds on the back. Narrow chisels use a lighter pressure and go more quickly. Now what's pretty cool here with the Tormek T8 is the water tray goes up and down easily with this knob at the back, but also the magnet at the front is pulling away the filings. So if I just slide off the water tray here, you can see right in the front there all those filings being collected from, that's just from the back on those 4 different chisels. You can see all the iron that we honed away on those chisels being collected there by the magnet, and we can easily just scrape that out and keep our water tray nice and clean. So that's it for the back of the chisels. You only have to do that one time. So now I can turn my attention to the front or bevel side of the chisel. First thing I want to do though is show you truing up this stone. This is something you don't have to do very often, but you want to check that the stone is straight across, both for getting a straight, sharp edge on your tools and also for the longevity of this stone. So to do that, we're going to use the truing tool here on the Tormek T8. You can check how true your grindstone is by lowering the universal support to just above the grindstone or even touching the stone, and make sure you have a consistent gap all the way across, or it's touching all the way across. Make sure to lock in the universal support when you're doing this. Now mine has just got a little bit of a slight difference in the gap, so I'm going to go ahead and true it up. The TT50 truing tool has a ceramic tip with embedded diamonds that cuts the grindstone and exposes a fresh surface, which is made up of 220 grit particles. So it makes this wheel nicely flat and true and ready to be a quick cutting stone. In fact, slightly quicker cutting and even more efficient than when using the coarse side of the stone grater, which I'll show later on. Slide the truing tool onto the universal support. Lock it in with the knob at the back. Lower the support until the truing tip is just above the stone. I check it left and right. I lower it that little bit more using the micro adjuster so that it's just touching the stone. Turn on the Tormek and start moving the truing tip across using the knobs. This is a brand new grindstone, so you can hear it making intermittent scratching. The surface is now being ground to a consistent flat all the way around the circumference of the stone. Now, I'm going to go ahead and unlock the universal support and lower that support just one little turn here with the micro adjuster. I'm going to lock that back in and go back across the other way. Now you can hear a consistent scratching as the surface is the same level all the way around the stone. So after truing the stone all the way across, wow, I can feel the surface is more coarse grade, much more so than it was before. So that'll be great for aggressively working on the bevel side of our chisels to start. And for straight chisels and plane blades, we're going to use the SE77 jig that's included with the Tormek T8. We're going to go ahead and pop in the chisel into the side here, hold it against the edge so that it's nice and straight, and then go ahead and tighten down the knobs. While we're talking about the square edge jig, the SE77, let me highlight a few features of this jig, especially pertinent to our straight chisel sharpening. The first is that you get nice even pressure with the two locking knobs, especially with this adjustable locking knob that tightens down to get nice evenly distributed pressure all the way across the tool, holding it nice and tight. Secondly, I mentioned holding the chisel against one end of the jig as I tighten the locking knobs. This is because there's a machined square shoulder at one end of the jig that registers the side of your tool to hold it perfectly square to the stone. Now, if it's not perfectly square, there are micro adjusting knobs at the other end of the jig. Loosen one and tighten the other to dial in the squareness of this jig. Now, we can check our progress of the chisel as we go to make sure that it's perfectly square.
We can fix this problem using the micro adjusters.
And finally, there are safety stops stored here on the jig. You can take off, slide onto the universal support to make sure that your tool doesn't come off the stone as you're grinding. Now that I have the chisel mounted in the jig, I'll slide it onto the universal support. Now I want to make sure to set the correct angle for grinding. Included with the Tormek T8 is the Angle Master. On the left-hand side, I'll set the size of my grindstone. There are handy markings cast onto the body of the T8 to measure the wheel. Mine is brand new, so it's going to be right around 250 millimeters. So I'll set the Angle Master here on the left side to 250 and lock that down. And then on the right hand side, we'll set the angle. I want to do a 30-degree angle, so we can just easily change this to 30 degrees for my bench chisel and lock that down. Now we go ahead and rest on the wheel and on the chisel and the wheel. So left hand side is on the wheel, right hand side is both on the wheel and the chisel, and we'll raise and lower the universal support to get it to exactly match that angle. So loosen the knobs at the back, and looks like we need to go ahead and lower this. So lower it down, getting a little bit closer. Lower it down, getting pretty tight, pretty close there. However, I've now bottomed out my universal support and I'm touching the wheel here, which we definitely do not want to do. So what I'm going to go ahead is go ahead and change the protrusion, kick this out a little bit more, and then go ahead and set it to the correct angle. So just loosen the knobs here on the jig. Kick my chisel out and keep it tight against the right hand side to keep it straight across. Go ahead and raise this up, and now we'll check our angle again. Back on the stone, on the chisel, there we go. Still need to lower it a little bit, and that is looking pretty close. With the correct angle set, I lock in the universal support by turning the two knobs at the back. Now I'm ready to simply grind the bevel and monitor progress as I go. I'm not using a lot of pressure here because it's not a very wide chisel, but I am using the entire stone back and forth. And let's go ahead and check that. There you can see the front. We're getting the front all the way across, not quite all the way to the back, but actually I'd be done at this point because I only need to do the very front. I don't have to get the whole bevel angle there. So that's actually pretty good, and that was about 10 seconds of work. Now I want to change this grindstone from the coarse 220 grit over to the finer 1000 grit, and I'll use the included stone grater to do that. Put it on the smooth side here, and about 10 to 20 seconds later, it will have broken down the outside of that grindstone to give a finer polish to our tool. I'm using pretty heavy pressure here to break down the outside of this stone. Now, without changing any other settings, our chisel is still here in the jig, and we can go ahead and put it right back on and start polishing the edge. Now you can immediately hear a difference in the grinding sound. It's much quieter here using that finer grit. Still using the whole stone all the way back and forth. And that was maybe about 20 seconds. Let's go ahead and take a look at that. It's starting to polish it, but not getting all the way to the tip nice and smooth, so I'll go ahead and give it just a little more work. And there we go. Nice all the way across. Very, very small scratches, which means we really are finding that front edge. Now I'm going to take it over to the honing wheel. Now that I have a nice polished edge using the 1000 grit or finer part of the stone, I'm going to change over the universal support from the vertical position, unlock it, take it out, into the horizontal position here at the front. Go ahead and loosen the knobs, slide it in, and then I'm going to go take the jig SE77 that the chisel is still in, and we're going to go ahead and reset the angle here. I haven't changed the chisel and the jig, but this wheel is smaller, and of course I just changed where the universal support is, so we need to go ahead and reset that angle. Grab the angle master again, and the honing wheel is 220, so I'll go ahead and change that over to 220, which is nicely marked here on the angle gauge, and leaving it at the 30 degree on the other side. Put it on. All right, I'll rest the angle master on here and on the wheel. This definitely has to come a lot further in, needs to be more like that. So move out the micro adjust, shove that in. There we go, that's getting pretty close. Again, we want the angle master to be touching the wheel and the chisel and to have no gap. There I've got it dialed in, so I'll go ahead and tighten down the universal support. Now of course, simply going to turn on the machine and hone the blade. All right, after about 10 to 20 seconds, really quick, if you can quite make out, there's a few scratches there, but it's definitely starting to get a mirror finish. All right, after about another, 30 seconds or so, and that is polished all the way across. Last thing I want to do is take off the burr along the back. So we've done the blade side, and it's created just a tiny little micro burr along the back. So what I'm going to do is pop that out of the jig, make sure I don't drop the chisels. I'm doing that. Be careful pulling it out. And just free hone the back on the honing wheel. Turn on the Tormek, and it's a little hard with the camera here, but I could just use level to keep the chisel just at a tangent to the wheel at the top. Make sure I don't round it over and just touch off that burr. So let's go ahead and take a look at the results that we got with our sharpening on this premium Lie-Nielsen chisel. I'll show you the paper test, which is a decent way here on video and in the shop to check results. Easily slides in, nice straight cut. That's awesome. So now it's the exact same process with those other chisels that I also want to get going here in the shop. I'm going to flatten the back on the outside of the grindstone. I'm going to change over the grindstone to that 220 grit or coarse setting using the stone grater. I can find an existing angle using the angle master or reset a new angle for my chisels. Pop the chisel into the jig, set the universal support to the correct angle, lock it in, and grind away. Monitor progress to make sure I get a consistent scratch pattern all the way to the front. Change the grindstone to a smaller 1000 grit using the stone grater, and without changing any other settings, put the bevel of the chisel back onto the grindstone. Once that is complete, move the universal support over to the honing wheel, reset the correct angle, and polish the bevel for a razor sharp chisel. So that is a detailed look of all the steps on how to sharpen a straight chisel using the Tormek T8. And I did that on a few different chisels, from a premium Lie-Nielsen chisel, which is really sharp straight from the factory, but even this system can get it razor sharp, or if it needs touching up, of course it'll work for that. Through to just regular chisels I use around the shop and the home constantly that maybe need a little more work. And again, the Tormek can get those razor sharp really quickly. Now, of course, the Tormek can do a lot more than just straight chisels. So you can check out our other product tour video of the Tormek T8 to see what else it can do. You can always find more information at highlandwoodworking.com and purchase a Tormek T8. So I hope that was really useful on how to sharpen straight tools using the Tormek T8. And for all your sharpening needs, be sure to check out highlandwoodworking.com.